As it is time, we would like to start the seminar, The Role of Mediation, Diplomacy, and Media in the Middle East from the Perspectives of Al Jazeera Center for Studies Through the Gaza Crisis. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be serving as the moderator. I am Kimura, researcher of the Asia and Islam Unit at Sasakawa Peace Foundation. Thank you very much for joining the open seminar hosted by Sasakawa Peace Foundation, The Role of Mediation, Diplomacy, and Media in the Middle East from the Perspectives of the Al Jazeera Center for Studies Through the Gaza Crisis. The Middle East situation has become increasingly unstable with the situation surrounding Iran and Israel and Gaza and Israel, among others. In addition to the countries and organizations directly involved, we cannot overlook the countries and actors that have a strong influence on the situation. Two prominent examples are Qatar and Al Jazeera. Qatar, since October 2023, was the mediator in the hostage release and ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas. Over the years, in the Middle East and Africa, Qatar has contributed to the peaceful resolution of international conflicts by mediating ceasefires between countries and forces. Based in Qatar is Al Jazeera. Since its founding in 1996, Al Jazeera has maintained the policy of bringing multiple angles to a story. Based on this policy, it continues to provide the latest information from the field from over 70 bureaus around the world, including Gaza and other conflict zones. In this seminar, two researchers from the Al Jazeera Center for Studies, the think tank arm of Al Jazeera, are here to give two lectures and deepening understanding of the Middle East situation from the perspective of the Al Jazeera Center for Studies and the role of Qatar and Al Jazeera in the Middle East. The executive commentator, Mr. Nobuhisa Degawa from NHK, who was planned to be on the panel, is unable to attend at the last minute because of rapid developments in the Middle East. So instead of the panel discussion, we would like to take Q&A session longer than originally planned. Your understanding is very much appreciated. Now, the host of this event, Mr. Itsu, Executive Director of Sasakawa Peace Foundation, will give an opening remark. Thank you for those who are joining us in person and online for finding time out of your busy schedules to participate in this open seminar hosted by Sasakawa Peace Foundation. The title of the seminar is The Role of Mediation, Diplomacy, and Media in the Middle East from the Perspectives of the Al Jazeera Center for Studies Through the Gaza Crisis. This is the theme of the seminar, and we are very grateful to see so many of you joining us. We have about 100 people attending in person and 270 people joining us online. There's been rapid developments in the Middle East, and tensions are heightening, and the fact that so many of you are showing interest is reflected in this large participation and turnout. I also feel how relevant and important it is to take up this topic at this juncture. Sasakawa Peace Foundation has an organizational mission, one of which is to encourage the realization of world peace and security. And we engage in dialogue with various stakeholders around the world to achieve this mission. Today, we are holding this seminar as part of our activities to promote understanding and strengthen relationships with Islamic countries. As the international community becomes increasingly unstable, activities that aim to promote dialogue and mutual understanding toward peace, centered on relationships with Islamic countries, are becoming more and more important. On the 13th of this month, Israel forces bombed multiple military bases in Iran, and there are ongoing attacks that are taking place, and intermittent ceasefires is being attempted, but we are not seeing any signs of reaching a solution. On the 13th of this month, Israeli forces bombed multiple military bases in Iran and also assassinated people who are affiliated with the military. And it was continued, followed by the 21st of the month when U.S. forces attacked 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. Iranian forces retaliated to Israel, and midnight Japan time launched missiles to U.S. air bases or U.S. air base in Qatar. Tensions are mounting. There has been talks of a truce. However, situation still remains quite uncertain. This situation could have a serious impact not only in Gaza, but also on the stability of the entire Middle East. And the seminar was planned even before the uncertainties mounting in the Middle East, but how we should approach the situation, how we should view the situation. I think this is a relevant opportunity for us to exchange views. In this climate, satellite TV station Al Jazeera, a Qatar-based company, continues to inform the world with the latest situation on the ground. Qatar is also actively engaged in diplomatic efforts as a mediator aiming to de-escalate the conflict. The news coverage we see every day often show announcements made from governments of relevant countries and the reports on the humanitarian situation. However, behind these reports lie complex international developments and numerous actors. To gain a deeper understanding of this background, it is extremely important to look at Al Jazeera's locally based reporting and its perspective on the Middle East. So today, we have invited 2 renowned researchers from the Al Jazeera Center for Studies, a think tank arm of Al Jazeera, well-versed in the situation in the Middle East, to share their insights about the situation on the ground, as well as the role played by Qatar and other actors, and also Al Jazeera as a media. We have with us Dr. Ezzeddine Abdulmoula, Manager of Research and Head of Gulf and International Research, Mr. Haoues Taguia. Both of them are extremely busy with U.S. air bases located in Qatar and its air base being attacked. They have found time to come all the way to Japan. I would like to extend our deep appreciation. So I hope that this seminar will provide an opportunity to learn about approaches to Middle East peace from a Middle East perspective and to deepen your understanding of the important roles played by Qatar and Al Jazeera. And finally, I would like to extend special thanks to all those involved in organizing this seminar, and I hope that peace and stability will come to the Middle East as soon as possible. And with that, I would like to conclude my opening remarks. Thank you. Now, without further ado, let us start the lecture. Lecture 1 is from the Head of Gulf and International Research at Al Jazeera Center for Studies, Mr. Haoues Taguia. The theme is the ongoing Middle East dynamics around Gaza. As Mr. Adachi said in his opening remarks, the situation is currently unstable not only between Gaza and Israel, but also between Israel and Iran, and tensions are rising throughout the Middle East. In light of this situation, today he will be discussing the current situation in the Middle East from a broader perspective with a focus on the situation in Gaza. Please join me in a big round of applause. Mr. Haoues Taguia, please take the stage.
Thank you for the invitation, Sasakawa Foundation. It's an opportunity to communicate our idea and to help for the understanding of what's happening in the region. So thank you. And also thank you for coming and for your precious time, and also for the who are online. Also thank you for your time and for joining us. So can I have a presentation, about it, yeah. So this is my topic. The idea is very simple. So I try to demonstrate the idea in this presentation. We have two perspectives about what's happening in the region, especially from the angle of Palestine problem. There is a perspective that the region will not be stable and will not be secure unless we resolve this problem. There is another perspective that we should ignore this problem, and will be treated by Israel as internal one, and we can have peace with the Arab countries because there is no problem between them and Israel. So we have two perspectives. Should we resolve the problem first and then normalize with Israel? This is the Arab initiative in Saudi Arabia and all the Arab countries agreed on. Or maybe this is the Abraham Accord, the last one. We can ignore the Palestine problem, and in the same time we can be friends. So we have two perspectives. What I will demonstrate that the vision that we can ignore this problem, and in the same time we can live in peace and in stability, cannot hold. And all my arguments will show you that the reverberation of what's happening in Gaza shaped all the levels, from the low levels between Israel and Palestine people, the regional one, the powers in the region, Iran, the Arab countries, and Turkey, and even the highest one between the great power, Russia, China, and the United States. And what's happened lastly, when the United States joined the fight against Iran, demonstrate that, this, what's happening in Israel, touch all these kind of levels. Yeah. So the structure, to clarify this argument, is showing you the situation before the war and after the war, to demonstrate that Gaza war is the heart of the earthquake in the region. Even if the land or the territory is is a small one, and Israel also is a small country, but the implications are very high because all the region is interconnected with each other. So I will show you the situation before and after in three levels: in between Palestine and Israel, in the regional level with Iran and with Turkey and the Arab countries, and then the high level between the connection with the great power, Russia, China, and United States. So this is the objective, you know. Yeah. As you see, you know, this is the situation of Gaza before. Gaza before was isolated from the world, and they have no control of the sea or of the air, the sky, so they cannot move without the permission of Israel. And this situation even is depicted or is considered by Israeli expert is like a camp of concentration, because all the population cannot live without the permission of Israel. And before they think that maybe we can manage this population by offering them, by improving the life of this population, by giving them some economic incentive, jobs, but they still know they don't have any right, any political right, and any control of their life. So we allow you only to live day by day. And they think that maybe it is sustainable, the situation. But what we learn, you know, from the history of all this movement of liberation, that we cannot offering people giving up their right for dignity or for their political right to have their own state in return for this economic incentive. So this situation is an explosive one. That's why, you know, we have this instability in the region. So they don't accept this situation. And what's happened in 7 October is one moment in a long history of this conflict. Because, you know, the majority of people of Gaza were displaced from what is called now the Israeli state. They were before there, and then during the war of 48, they were displaced to this region, and normally it's for temporary time, but not, then it's forever. And then, you know, even in this place, they were, as I said, they were, you know, they don't have the rights to move freely and also to control their life. So it's the same struggle between an occupied state over a population. It's the same, you know, over the history. We have an occupying state over the population and the struggle for this population to liberate themselves. It happens, you know, in Algeria. It happens in South Africa. It's the same. It isn't new. That's the history of colonialism. This is the history of colonialism. We have occupying power, you know, controlling a population and refusing to this population to have their own state, and the other population struggling, fighting for their own liberation. And also, you know, in this conflict, the occupying power designating all this resistance as terrorists. Nelson Mandela was designated as a terrorist. Arafat was designated as a terrorist. And in final, he gets, you know, both of them, they get, you know, Nobel Prize. So it's the same story. It isn't new. It isn't new. If we put it in this historical perspective, it's the same. It's the same story. So this is the causes. And so this is before the war, and this is the cause of the war, you know. This is the same fight. Okay. This is Gaza after the war. So practically there is no house left in Gaza for the population. So we have population without any house, without any structure for living, And so, as you see, we have here, how many people displaced in Gaza, and you have the matrix, how many of Israeli killed and how many of Palestinian killed during this war. And in the same time, in a political perspective, the Knesset of Israel voted a law that refused any state for the Palestinian. That's mean, they left without any option. If we don't have any right to have the state, so what is our future? Accept to be dominated by Israel in apartheid state. There is occupying state, and we accept to be under this this occupying state, or maybe displaced, forced displacement. It's advocated by ministries, Smotrich, displaced all the population, and this is the purpose of this destruction, because there is no way to live in Israel, in Gaza, so you should leave. And this is the purpose. This is what Trump advocated, finding another country for the Palestinian in another country. It's their country. So why we force them to go into another country? And this is, what the far right in Israel advocating also, Smotrich, Ben Ghafir. So, and this is the purpose of why we have this devastation. So they can return to any house, we don't have house. You don't have school, you don't have hospitals. So you should leave. So this is the perspective. You cannot stay because, there is no life. You don't have a right to have your state. You have one choice: to leave your country to another place, because we want your place. We want to take your place. So this is now the horizon of the situation, and they consider maybe it will work. It will work. We displaced almost 2 million from their country, and is it a factor of stability or instability when you displace all these people, especially if you start by Gaza and then you go to the West Bank? You will fragilize 2 countries at least, Egypt and Jordan. So who is behind the instability in the region? Who is behind the instability? Who refused to the people to have their own state and to stay in their own territory and their own country? So you should focus on the center of instability on the region in this level, because we will see it also in the other level. We touch now in the other level. Because, when you refuse to Palestinians to have their own state, so you push them to other places. When you push them to other places, you create problem to your neighbors, Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon. Because, for example, the problem of Hezbollah. Before Hezbollah didn't exist. But when the OLP, that's mean Organization of Liberation of Palestinian, led by Yasser Arafat, was in Lebanon, and then Israel went to fight him in Lebanon, and then in this month, and then occupied this place, and that's why Hezbollah emerged to resist. So it's like a reaction of what Israel did. Before, it doesn't exist, Hezbollah, but it's an answer to what's happening. So when you refuse the Palestinians to have the right to have state, you create instability for your neighbors, and this instability touch this regional level. Yeah. So for the regional level, because when Gaza starts, we have other groups enter to support Hamas defending Gaza, So before, Hezbollah was in Lebanon, and it's like, there is equilibrium of deterrence between Hezbollah and Israel. And also, now we have the Houthi in Yemen. So, but the Houthi didn't do anything. They didn't fight. They were occupied by the Yemeni problem. And we have Saudi Arabia preparing for more normalization in the region, but in condition that the problem, the state of Palestine, should be first achieved, and Israel accept this condition, and then we normalize. So this is the situation before, but after 7 October, these people, Saudi Arabia refused, to join the Abraham Accord because, the problem of Palestine state still a problem. And for the Hezbollah and for the Houthi, they consider themselves as a part of this fight because, they have relations with this, they are part of this region, and they consider themselves as a part of defending the region from this occupation. This occupation is in the other side. Israel consider that the Western should support her. In the other side, we have Hezbollah and the Hamas consider that also they should support each other to defend what they consider their rights. So this is the situation before. That's what happened before the war. That's what happened after Hezbollah joined the fight. But Israel succeed to undermine the Hezbollah, and to before Gaza, there is this axis of resistance between the groups, the armed groups allied to Iran, and the purpose of this axis is to fight together, and help each other against the common enemy. But after Israel succeed to fracture this axis by undermining the capacities and the power of Hezbollah. So after we don't have we don't have anymore this axis. The axis is fractured, and who continues to fight is only the Houthi from the Yemen, who was a part of this axis, and he mainly focused on the maritime movement and preventing any Israeli maritime transport of goods and others. So we have this change before and after. Before we have the resistance axis. After we don't have anymore this resistance axis. And before the war, we have the Syrian regime who start to normalize. But by Israel, by weakening Hezbollah, undermining his power, so the Syrian regime became very weak, and then the rebels in the north of Syria took the opportunity and overthrew. I said, so we have this change of regime in Syria, and the Saudi, before there is this process of normalization. After Saudi Arabia refused to talk about the normalization unless Israel stopped its war in Gaza and accept that the Palestinian has their own state. So you see the dynamics, before and after. Axis of resistance, no more axis of resistance. Syrian regime, no Syrian regime, we have a new regime. Saudi Arabia normalization, no Saudi Arabia normalization. It starts all from Gaza. You see the connection between the two levels. We have the level of Gaza, and the regional level. We have the regional level Hezbollah, Saudi Arabia, and Syrian collapse. And also we have Iran who joined, the fight, because, Israel considered that all these proxies are the power who create all these proxies to tie Israel to contain Israel is Iran. So, and the consequences of what's happened in Gaza, it's what we see, recently, the recent, war, the overt war between Israel and without in the United States against Iran. So we start by Gaza, we go to this regional level, all the changes of the axis of resistance, of the Syrian collapse, and Saudi refusing the normalization and joining the Abraham Accord. It started from the war of Gaza. So you can see the before and after. So now we go to the global one. What was the before? What is from Obama? What is the new strategy of United States? Is shifting its power to the Pacific here, to contain China. But we have two developments. The first one is Ukraine. So United States was forced to focus on the European front during Biden administration to contain Russia. So the focus of United States was disturbed by this war. So United States cannot leave Europe front and go to the Pacific. And then we have Gaza war, and all the Biden administration, all the activities of Biden administration were focused on the region, his call, his visits, his investment, his carriers, so all the effort of United States came here. So we have two fronts. Normally they are secondary in the United States strategy. The main front is here in the Pacific. But because we didn't resolve the problem of Palestine. So Israel is always in trouble. Because Israel refused to resolve the problem. So we have this fight and we have this conflict, ongoing conflict. So if United States cannot shift, cannot go to the Pacific to contain China, because always Israel call United States to come and defend me, protect me, send me, help me, support me. So United States cannot take care of China. So this is the big strategy. And you see how Gaza can divert United States from its own big strategy, or grand strategy. We have the Ukrainian front and we have the Gaza front. So that means United States cannot implement its own strategy unless it resolves this problem in Gaza. Otherwise, Israel will always call for help. Come, help us, defend us, send us weapons, send us money. So we should resolve this problem even in the interest of United States. Otherwise, always United States will be invest here in the Middle East. So, and you can see, how they spent, during, Biden is 20 billion. They spent 20 billion to help Israel with weapons. It's a huge amount. And what about Russia and China? For them, it's what happened. It's good for them. Because, for the Russian, if United States now is diverted by what's happening in Gaza, so they can take care of Ukraine. Because, United States will balance between its support of Ukraine and its support for Gaza, for Israel. And then they say no. And we saw this when the Congress during Biden wants to support them financially. So some of the congressmen refuse, to give to Ukraine what Ukraine needs, because, they prefer that the aid goes to Israel. So for United States, it's a problematic, problematic to balance. And if they reduce their support to Ukraine, it's an opportunity for Russia to advance. And if the United States send a huge part of their weapons to Israel, it's good for the Russia because Ukraine will not receive what it needs for its defense. So it's a good news, that United States will be here in Gaza, and it isn't good it's good for them to expand their influence and their region. The same for China. If United States is preoccupied by here I mean in the Middle East, so it's a good news because for China, United States is busy with other things, so they have a time to empower themselves and to prepare themselves, to expand their influence, and also to tell the others, don't rely on the other state because they are busy there. So don't think that maybe they will come and they protect you, especially Taiwan, because they are busy with protecting Israel. So you see, if you don't resolve the problem of Gaza, you have this repercussion in this different level. Yeah, I mentioned that. Yeah, I think that I expressed the idea. In the beginning, we said that we have two perspectives. One, the region can be stable without resolving the Palestinian problem, and that's what Israel advocated. The other one, the Arab world, especially Saudi Arabia and the Arab Initiative, we cannot stabilize the region and normalize with Israel unless we resolve this problem. What's happened in Gaza demonstrates in different level that this problem, the implication of this problem touch all these levels, all these dynamics, even the great power dynamics, even Russia, China, and the United States. That's mean for the stability and for the security in all these levels, we should first resolve this problem by giving to the Palestinians their right to have a state as promised by the UN and as promised also by the Israeli in the Oslo Accord. Otherwise, we will see more fight, we'll see more cycle of violence, and the region will be unstable and will impact all the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the lecture. Now, let us turn to the second lecture. Manager of Research, Al Jazeera Center for Studies, Dr. Ezzeddine Abdulmoula. The theme is Qatar's role in mediation, diplomacy, and the reporting orientation of Al Jazeera. The situation in the Middle East is changing day by day and becoming increasingly unstable. He will talk about Qatar's diplomatic role and Al Jazeera's media coverage. Dr. Abdulmoula, please take the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the organizers, the SPF, for giving us this opportunity to exchange ideas and try to make some complex issues a bit clear. Let me first make this disclaimer. I'm gonna start with Qatar's mediation diplomacy, then I will follow with the part of the presentation on Al Jazeera. For this part, I would like to say that I don't talk on behalf of Qatar at any level. So whatever I say here It's my own thoughts as a researcher. So I'm not representing Qatar in saying whatever is going to be said in this presentation. The second note is I deliberately separated two parts of this presentation, Qatar's diplomacy and Al Jazeera's coverage. So we don't understand that Al Jazeera is part of Qatar's diplomacy, or that Qatar is using Al Jazeera to advance its diplomacy. So I want to keep the two presentations separate for this purpose. So starting with Qatar's mediation diplomacy, I have 4 points. The first is the strategic motivations behind the mediation. 2, the key features of Qatar's mediation diplomacy. 3, I will give examples of Qatar's mediation initiatives. And lastly, I will say some few words about the challenges and the criticism that are leveled against Qatar's diplomacy. So starting with the first point, the strategic motivations behind the mediation that Qatar is leading or has been leading for some time now. We have 3 points. We have the security through relevance, global reputation, and balancing relations. For the first point, as a small state, as you know, Qatar is in a volatile region. Mr. Haoues was speaking about the characteristics of the Middle East as a very volatile region. Qatar uses diplomacy to make itself indispensable and protect its sovereignty. So it uses diplomacy as a leverage to protect its interests and to maximize its indispensability in the region that it exists within. The second point is the global reputation that Qatar is building, and it has been building through its diplomacy. It seeks to brand itself as a global player and a responsible actor in international affairs. The third point is balancing relations, because mediation allows Qatar to maintain ties with diverse actors, including the US, Russia, Iran, China, Turkey, and various non-state actors. We'll come back to the non-state actors point later. The second point is the key features of Qatar's mediation diplomacy. There are a few points here. I'm going to give about 6 or 7 points. The first point is the neutrality and open channels. Qatar maintains open channels with a wide range of actors in the Middle East and beyond. Western powers and regional rivals. This neutrality allows it to serve as a trusted mediator. State and non-state actors. Qatar has always shown willingness to engage with various actors, including those marginalized by the international community. Qatar also supports inclusive dialogue processes involving marginalized groups and non-state actors, i.e. Islamic movements like Taliban, the Houthis, Hamas, and this open channel with this type of groups will help Qatar's diplomacy be successful in several occasions. Small size, big power. As we mentioned, it's a small size state, but it's playing a big role using this power. The small size of the state of Qatar often plays a key role in making it a powerful mediator and a preferred venue for successful mediation. conflicting parties tend to avoid big-size states whose mediation is usually driven by particular agendas and comes with preset conditions. As a small states, different parties don't think that Qatar may enforce them to follow their agenda. So the small size here plays in favor of Qatar. Soft power and humanitarian diplomacy. That's another key feature of Qatar mediation diplomacy. It uses its financial resources and humanitarian efforts to build credibility and influence in conflict zones. This can be implemented through development projects in different countries, financial aid, and direct investments. Hosting and facilitating talks. Qatar has developed an effective infrastructure for mediation, including networks of key players, well-trained staff, logistics, and procedures, along with accumulated learning from past experiences. Now, Qatar has a profile of a good number of initiatives in this regard that its staff are learning from and building on. The last point is the proactive foreign policy framework that all these features rest on. Qatar often steps in where traditional powers are unable or unwilling to mediate. Based on this framework, it capitalizes on moments of regional instability to demonstrate its diplomatic utility. When we come to enumerate the Qatar's initiatives, we will start with the most recent initiative that's happened just today. The third point is examples of Qatar's mediation initiatives. I tried to dig into the history of this mediation and found a good number of initiatives going back as 2007, when Qatar managed to secure the release of 5 Bulgarian nurses and a Palestinian medical doctor after 8 years imprisonment in Libya through mediation between the Libyan leadership and the Bulgarian governments. So it started from a humanitarian background, then moved into more politics and geopolitics. In 2008, Qatar brokered the Doha Agreement between the Lebanese parties, which resolved political deadlock and ended an 18-month political crisis. Again, in 2008, Qatar mediated between the Houthi rebels and the Yemeni government and brokered a reconciliation agreement. 2011, Qatar hosted the Sudan-Darfur peace talks, which concluded with the Doha document for peace in Darfur between Khartoum and Darfur rebel groups. In 2011 again, Qatar mediated between Eritrea and Djibouti over border disputes. The mediation succeeded in signing a peace agreement between the two countries. 2018 to 2020, Qatar led mediation efforts between the Afghanistan Taliban and the US, which culminated, as you know, in the Doha Agreement in 2020, paving the way for the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. In 2021, Qatar mediated between Kenya and Somalia and ended a 5-month crisis over Somali allegations that Kenya interferes in the internal affairs of Somalia. 2022, Qatar facilitated the Chad peace talks between the Transitional Military Council and the rebel groups. The talks concluded with a peace deal signed by more than 40 opposition groups to launch a national reconciliation dialogue, paving the way for transitional political stability. 2025, Qatar hosted peace talks between Congo and Rwanda to de-escalate the rising tensions between the two countries, especially after the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels stepped up an offensive in Congo last January. On the Palestinian issue, from 2023 until now, along with Egypt and the United States, Qatar is leading mediation efforts between Israel and Hamas, which resulted in 2 ceasefire agreements and hostage prisoners exchange. The first was in 2023 and the second early this year. In fact, Qatar was also involved in mediation between Israel and the Palestinians to bring previous wars to an end. 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021, Qatar was involved also in these ceasefires. Okay, before we come to the last point of this first part of presentation, we must also add the most recent initiative of mediation that we hope ended the conflict between Israel and Iran today. You are following news, and Qatar has been key to bring the two parties together, and the ceasefire has been announced, as you follow, of course. So this is the last and the most recent initiative of Qatar initiatives. Okay, now, of course, every human effort has its own shortages, and criticism are always leveled against human efforts. There are a few points. Perceived biases. While Qatar aims for neutrality, sometimes it is accused of bias towards certain countries or some non-state actors. Regional rivalries that sometimes hinders these efforts. Qatar's diplomacy has at times clashed with the interests of neighboring countries or regional powers like Saudi Arabia, UAE, or Egypt. Effectiveness. Sometimes Qatar's diplomacy is accused of not being very effective. Some of Qatar's mediation efforts do not always yield long-term peace or reach final solutions or settlements. And we have, of course, the recurring conflicts in Gaza as an example. It's recurring, of course, not because of Qatar's mediation, but because of the reasons Mr. Haoues was mentioning earlier on in his presentation. Okay, second part, the Al Jazeera coverage of the war on Gaza. I'm going to focus on the editorial policies of the network and the journalistic practices that try to implement those editorial policies and turn them into practical journalism. Let me first give you the structure of this part. First point, will give you some facts and figures in the form of overview. Then we go into the editorial policies and the journalistic practices. In 3 points, principles and guidelines, open live field reporting, and the third is Al Jazeera being the only broadcaster in this war. The third point is the cost of this coverage and the reward that the network also gets. Okay, I'm sure some of you know some of the points that I'm going to present now, but it's okay if we repeat them. You know, Al Jazeera is headquartered in Qatar since its establishment in 1996. It has extensive reach across the globe and is available in over 150 countries and territories in more than 450 million households. These figures are updated, I think, the last couple of weeks. So they must have moved up a little bit. The network employs more than 3,000 staff members from 95 countries and serves its global audience through 70 bureaus around the world, making it one of the largest news network in the world. Al Jazeera content also reaches massive audiences by being accessible online through video streaming platforms such as YouTube, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, Fire, and others. Social media networks increased the reach of Al Jazeera through its various accounts, and there are figures before every account. You can see them. Currently, Al Jazeera produces and delivers content in 6 languages: Arabic, English, Spanish, French, Bosnian, and Chinese. You may know the main news channels are Al Jazeera Arabic, Al Jazeera English, then Al Jazeera Balkans. That's the third news channel within the network. Then, over the years, Al Jazeera expanded into several channels, subsidiaries, and digital platforms, including the following: Al Jazeera Arabic channel, Al Jazeera Net Arabic. This is in, historical order. Al Jazeera.com, which is the English website. Al Jazeera Media Institute, which used to be called the Al Jazeera Training Center. That's where the journalists of Al Jazeera get trained, and other journalists from the region. Al Jazeera Mubashir channels, that's another channel. Al Jazeera English, Al Jazeera Center for Studies, Al Jazeera Documentary Channel, that's another channel. I don't know how much of you follow it because it's so far in Arabic only. Al Jazeera Center for Public Liberties and Human Rights, Al Jazeera Balkans, I mentioned that, AJ Plus, Al Jazeera Digital Directorate, which is one of the new initiatives within the network that is trying to take Al Jazeera into the future, focusing on digital, Al Jazeera Podcast, and AJ 360 Digital Library. Okay, so that gives you an idea on the network, a little bit of its history and its different components. Now, with regard to the editorial policies and journalistic practices, let me first start with the principles and the guidelines. Al Jazeera's editorial policy rests on 5 main pillars. 1, well-defined editorial policies and guidelines to maintain the highest standards in covering news and current affairs. And this is documented, and it's distributed among Al Jazeera journalists, and everyone has to refer to them and comply with them. These standards are based on international journalistic practices, as well as Al Jazeera's years of own experience. Here are the basic standards and principles guiding Al Jazeera's editorial policy: accuracy and balance in reporting, impartiality and objectivity, the opinion and the other opinion, to be the voice for the voiceless, multi-sourcing, mean Al Jazeera doesn't rely on one source, even if it's their own reporter. It always needs to counter that with at least a second source. Truth before scoop. Sometimes we get news before anyone else, but we don't diffuse it because even sometimes the source is not very trusted. Sometimes, it's doubtful that the news is real. So scoop is not what drives the Al Jazeera editorial policy, but the truth. Acknowledgement and correction of errors when they occur. This is the first standard. Second is the quality control to oversee the coverage and report regularly to the management. In this regard, Al Jazeera established a dedicated department called Quality Control. The department staff members watch continuously the coverage of the network's different channels to ensure compliance with the editorial standards that we mentioned in number 1, to ensure compliance with the editorial standards and report any violations or errors. So the network operates in this place. In a different place, there is a directorate that is overseeing the broadcasting of Al Jazeera and report to the management if there's any problems, any error, any non-compliance with these standards. It reports regularly and it watches the broadcasting of the network channels 24 hours. The third point in this is continuous professional training. So we have the principles and standards, we have the quality control. Number 3, we have continuous professional training to improve performance and keep abreast with the latest developments in the field. For this purpose, the network established a dedicated training center to train Al Jazeera journalists and journalists from other media organizations in the region and beyond. The fourth point is checks and verification to ensure accuracy of news, images, and videos, and counter the rising phenomena of fake news, misinformation, disinformation. Al Jazeera put together a dedicated mechanism of verification called Sanad Agency. Sanad means proof. It's a dedicated entity within the network that is looking at news, images, videos, because in this AI era, there's a lot of problems when it comes to fake news, falsification, making up images and videos. So this entity is working on verifying the authenticity of these materials. And of course, it's very busy because a lot of fake news comes in as we cover, so they are directed to this entity to verify them and see whether they are authentic, true or not. The fifth and last pillar of this editorial policy is the human element. The experienced, diverse, and highly trained staff, means editors, journalists, technicians, and operational staff, to implement these policies and translate them into practical journalism. So these are the 5 pillars that, or on which the editorial policy of Al Jazeera rests. So how would these policies applied to Al Jazeera's coverage of the war in Gaza, and what characterizes its coverage? So let's move now to the field. The first point is the open live field reporting. In big developing stories, Al Jazeera's programming changes radically and the coverage focuses primarily on live news reporting. By big developing stories, I mean wars, armed conflicts, humanitarian disasters like tsunamis, earthquakes, and famines, or political events like elections, riots, and popular uprisings. To cover such evolving stories, Al Jazeera opts for open coverage and drops its regular programs and talk shows. As you know, media is made by two parts, news and programs. So when these kind of big developing stories happen, Al Jazeera drops its regular programs and focuses only on news reporting. So since the war on Gaza broke out, Al Jazeera stopped its regular programs and opened its coverage to live field reporting, coupled with in-studio political and military analysis. Like all news networks, broadcasting is divided into news and programs. So before these big events happens, on regular covering, Al Jazeera broadcasts its news bulletins and a number of programs, including just examples of the programs that Al Jazeera broadcast in normal times. Like Al Jazeera هذا الصباح, Al Jazeera الاتجاه المعاكس, المقابلة, فوق السلطة, ما وراء الخبر, من واشنطن, ما خفي أعظم, للقصة بقية, المسافة صفر. You have the English translation there, yeah? Yeah. تأملات, موازين, المرصد, and so on. All these programs stopped and the screen opened for live news reporting for 24 hours. So this shift happens when the big developing stories come in. So this change of policy in these circumstances ensured that Al Jazeera has the superiority over its competitors in three ways. So you have one channel that is reporting 24 hours from the field. Then you have analysis in the studio. Other channels continue their reporting, giving just small time for that story and continue their other programs. So this change gives Al Jazeera the superiority over its competitors because audiences will turn to its screen to follow the developments. First, it allowed enough airtime to cover the war from different angles and report developments as they happen in different locations from both sides. Well, from both sides until Al Jazeera was allowed to report, because at a later stage it was banned from reporting from the Israeli side. Second, it enables viewers to make sense of what is happening and form a deep understanding that goes beyond the fast consumptions of figures and facts. Continued analysis by experts accompanying news reporting put these figures and facts into context and provide the complete picture. The third point that the open field reporting gives Al Jazeera, thanks to strategic positioning of Al Jazeera's reporting or reporters and their ability to cover timely and repeatedly every aspect of the developing situation, military, humanitarian, health, education, diplomatic negotiations, etc. This makes it the go-to channel for all those interested in following what's happening in all these areas, which no other channel can provide. If you have only news bulletin of 10 minutes or half an hour a day, you can't cover all these stories from all sides and give opportunity to everyone to follow this from all sides. This policy placed Al Jazeera in a unique position as the only broadcaster providing the world with a window through which people can follow the ongoing war on Gaza. What does it mean, the only broadcaster? When the war started, foreign media left the Gaza Strip, either voluntarily or under Israeli threats. Al Jazeera remained on the ground and continued its field reporting uninterrupted. Equipped with a relatively large number of local reporters, Al Jazeera's Gaza office succeeded for more than 20 months now to cover all parts of the Strip, even after the Israeli forces separated them physically into north, middle, and south. Al Jazeera remained there in the north, the middle, and the south. And later, the Israeli forces divided those three main parts into small squares, in which it becomes very difficult even for regular people to move between. So later to smaller and heavily militarized squares. Israel, on its part, continued to target journalists as it did with other civilians, individuals, and institutions, killing more than 200 journalists in 20 months now of this war. So being the only international broadcaster operating on the ground and the only news network transmitting timely and credible information around the clock, this made Al Jazeera the source of exclusive information on the war on Gaza. This information gets, of course, repeated by other and replayed by other networks and on social media platforms around the world, maximizing the reach and the effect of this coverage. What is the cost of all this? So Al Jazeera's success has not been without challenges. The network and its journalists have been in the crossfire and at times paid a heavy price for seeking to bring truth to its audiences. Since its rise as an international broadcaster on the global stage, Al Jazeera has been subject to various types of pressure, harassment, intimidation, distortion, incitement, denial of access, office closures, revocation of licenses, etc., etc. Its crews and offices have been targeted in many places, and some of its journalists were killed while carrying out their duties. A few examples of these attacks include the following. In 2001, there was an American bombing of Al Jazeera's office in Kabul and the destruction of the building during the war on Afghanistan. 2003, there was an attack on Al Jazeera's office in Baghdad, killing reporter Tariq Ayoub. 2011, an attack on Al Jazeera crew in Libya, killing photographer Ali Hassan al-Jaber. And 2020, the Israeli attack on Al Jazeera crew in the occupied West Bank in Jenin, killing reporter Shireen Abu Aqla. Of course, it is just very few examples. Up until the war on Gaza, 12 of Al Jazeera journalists were killed in the field in different countries. During the war on Gaza, the network lost 10 more of its journalists, making the total 22 so far. This is just a small part of the overall figure that amounts to 2,017 journalists killed by Israel since the war started in October 2023. As the war goes on, of course, the counter is still counting, and we don't know when the war ends, how many of the journalists will be lost. So when targeting journalists failed to silence the network, Israel decided to close its office and ban its coverage based on a law passed in the Knesset in April last year called Al Jazeera Law. In return, let's see the good news. In return for its remarkable media coverage and against the backdrop of this high cost, Al Jazeera received numerous awards for the quality of its news programs, documentaries, investigations, operation, innovation, etc. One particular type of the awards I want to mention here is that for the 9th consecutive year, Al Jazeera English channel was named Broadcaster of the Year at the 2025 New York Festival's TV and Film Awards. In the broader picture, Al Jazeera succeeded in securing its position as one of the top 3 global media networks competing over global audiences along with the BBC and the CNN. I leave you with these remarks and thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much for that. Now I would like to open the floor for questions. Dr. Abdulmoula and Mr. Taguia, please take the stage. So we now would like to entertain questions for those who are attending in person. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Please state your name and affiliation before asking your question. So the gentleman in the middle, I saw your hand. My name is Kojima from the Defense Academy. I have one question. 2023 in November, in Gaza, there was a temporary stop of attacks. According to news media, Qatar was monitoring the ceasefire and established a mechanism to monitor ceasefire. And when I heard about this in the media coverage, I was wondering how it's taking place. And listening to your lectures today, it seems that you have dispatched quite a number of people locally. For this temporary ceasefire, Qatar government and Al Jazeera, have you had any collaborations?
ありがとうございます。では、質問を複数
Okay, so maybe we can take a number of questions and ask them to answer all together. Lady in front.
どちらでも、じゃあ今
You could either ask in English or Japanese. You will.
From Gulf Research Center from Saudi Arabia. I would like to thank you to Qatar to lots of effort to Saudi and Iran to recoup the relationship. You didn't mention on the speech, but we all know you have extreme lots of effort for the kingdom. So I represent Gulf Research Center. I would like to thank you to you. Second, I would like to ask you, Gulf Cooperation, the relationships are recently weaker, not strong as it used to be. So do you think this particular significant incident will emphasize relationship again with all the Gulf Cooperation relationship? And secondly, Abraham Accord, it seems to me 2 Gulf states is only joined so far, and the UAE and Bahrain. And is there any reason a more Sunni, stronger country like Oman or Qatar has not entered this relationship? And the third, you have a very close relationship with China, especially Japan sees the agreement, LNG agreement with Qatar, since you have a strong relationship with China. do you have any interest in changing trading currency to US dollar to a Chinese yuan? So that's just 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you for those questions. So maybe we have amassed enough questions. If you could like to respond to these questions, I would appreciate if you could respond in a succinct manner so that we can take as many questions as we can.
Can I take the first question, whether Al Jazeera and Qatar collaborated during the first ceasefire? To my understanding, the only collaboration is we cover what Qatar is doing on the ground. So if there is negotiations, we cover negotiations. If there are difficulties, we try to highlight the difficulties. And we try to talk to different parties. And Al Jazeera did, of course, talk to the Qatari government, as well as Israeli, as well as the US and the Egyptians, of course. So the role of Al Jazeera is bring to light what happens on the ground. So there's no other ways of collaborating, let's say, to push this agreement to go forward or to, that's not our role. I think the second is for, do you mean the incident is the recent war between Israel and Iran? Did that bring together the GCC countries? And yeah, I think so. I think the GCC countries, because they exist in the same geography, very close together, demography that are intertwined, and their interests are the same. Their fate is the same. Their enemies should be the same, and their friends should be the same. I think what has happened recently did bring them together. As far as I know, the GCC countries' relations with Iran are different. Every country has their own approach to the relations with Iran, from the very close to the quite
Distant.
sometimes gets to enmity. But I think these recent developments, and before, in fact, the Gulf countries and Iran, I think they started to come together and look at what brings them together more than what divides them. And I know that the Chinese mediation between Saudi Arabia and Iran tried to build bridges and bring the two countries together. If that is taken forward, I think all the GCC countries will go that way. And of course, Qatar has been the most close among the GCC countries to Qatar for many reasons. And I think now all the rest are going this way. So if the threat is there, they will come together. Iraq, China, Iran.
Yeah.
What is China? Is Qatar going to?
Yeah, of course, the currency.
I can't answer that question.
May I add, what for the Dr. Ezzeddine, mentioned about if this war brings the Gulf countries closely to each other, I think, yeah. Especially the success of this mediation of Qatar, because, these countries are between two contradictory forces, for the United States as a security guarantor, and Iran is a powerful neighborhood. So the perfect situation for them is to find, to bridge between the two powers, because if they fight each other's, the contradiction emerges, for this country. They should take sides, and they don't want to take sides, They want the relation to be good with the United States as a security guarantor, and with Iran neighbor, with very complicated relation. So the perfect is to have them together. And during this war, Qatar succeed to deflect to bring them together, Iran and United States. So I think that, all the countries of the Gulf are very thankful to Qatar because the situation was very intense and the escalation is very probable. So Qatar succeed to resolve this problem, not only for its interests, but for all, not only also for the Gulf countries, but all for the region, for you also, Because if the escalation going on and on, so maybe the Hormuz Strait will be closed, and you will not get neither petrol nor gas. So Qatar succeed. I think that Qatar achieve what all these countries, look for, to bring United States and Iran to bridge between them. So I think that, they will be very thankful for Qatar. And about, the differentiation, sometimes, they don't have the same agenda. This is the normal way, This is in Asia, this is in Europe, Each state has its own interest, has its own perception, has its own condition, but they try to cooperate, like in European, the Hungarian government wants to have a good relation with Russia. But for the others, for the Poland government now consider Putin as a vital threat. So this is the normal way of life. You cannot say that the GCC will be an exception. They should do the same. They are different, even for the geographical situation. For the Qatari, the Qatar, for example, shares this. The gas field, with the Iran, they share it. So they have their own situation, differently from Saudi Arabia. For the question, yeah. So Qatar is like the others, like the world, Qatar, for the main currencies, the reserve currency is the dollar, 60%. And also, Qatar is, the currency of Qatar is, it's big to the dollar, but there is they open an office of this using of yuan, for in the exchange, But I think that it's in the beginning, So Qatar, I think that it's open for this kind, but it's early, to say that we will change the international monetary system, and Qatar will be the pioneer, because economically, no, it isn't relevant. For the yuan isn't ready, because China has its policies, so it's not. China is not ready to be the reserve currency of the world. And at the same time, we still use the dollar at the reserve, So I think that it's open. They start to have this kind of transaction, but it's not a big level. And Qatar doesn't use it as a geopolitical change, because others in the BRICS advocated for this change to undermine to create this multipolar world. Qatar is not in this. Qatar for Qatar, it's a practical solution. It's not in this kind of change of this. Yeah, this is about the last question, huh? About the currency. Yeah.
Yes.
はい、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions from the floor? I'm hoping to take maybe one or two more questions.
Presentation. I'm Kato, involved in the reconstruction of Iran after war. And I would like to have lots of information from your side in Japan. In case of that, how to get to your channel? That is one question. And second is, how about the relationship between your country, your organization, and Japanese government? Is there any financial assistance or something, close relation with Japanese government? These are two questions. Thank you very much.
I take the first one.
Yeah.
How to get access to Al Jazeera? Is that the question? Yeah. Al Jazeera has a presence in Japan. Yes, it has an office here. It's not a big office. It's not like an office in Gaza or in New York, for example, or London or Paris. But there is a presence of Al Jazeera here. So that's physical access. You can go to them and visit them and see what they say. And of course, other means of communication with Al Jazeera, they're available. And if you go on Al Jazeera websites, which part you want to have access to, you will find telephone numbers, you'll find emails. Yeah. So these are the two possible ways of having access to Al Jazeera. And if you want to take the second.
Yeah, so the second the question is about the relation between Al Jazeera and the government, or
No.
between Qatar and the government of Japan? Yeah,
Yes.
but between the government, what I know that there is a cooperation between the two countries. So, for example, the gas here, the Qatar is providing the gas for Japan, and also Japan participated, I think, in the tramway, I think, construction in Qatar. Yeah.
We share the same culture, events together.
Yeah.
We exchange support in the United Nations.
Yeah.
That would be great too.
Gas import was to Japan, so our development in Qatar is to thank Japan. Also, Qatar helped Japan after the earthquake happened in Japan. So, Qatar and Japan is a very long relationship. We have a strategic relationship with Japan, so we are more than friends with Japan.
Yeah, and I think that also the two countries have many perspectives to work together, because both of them are considering this the clean energy or the green energy, so they work on. And also, maybe, in other fields like the robotic, I know that Japan is very advanced in the robotic because of the aging population, and Qatar, because has a small population, maybe they can cooperate, so they can help each other in this regard. So I think that they have many opportunities to cooperate, and I think that the relation is very vital for Japan, especially, I think, because Japan needs the gas, and Qatar is a reliable partner. So for the Japanese, I think that is very important to invest in this relation. And also, if Japan, because what we heard here when we come, it's about what role can Japan play in this region. I think that this business mind, it's not sufficient, because what Japan, I think that for the Japanese interest is to have this stability in the region, and I think that what Qatar plays there is stabilize the region, and I think that it's an opportunity for Japanese to work closely with Qatar government to stabilize and to mediate, and to have a partnership and cooperation, because it's in the interest of all. So maybe for the Japan government to consider also to play a role, geopolitical role, to de-escalate for the conflict mediation. And Qatar, I think that is the perfect partner there. He's accepted by all the parties, and also has the relation, as Dr. Aziz mentioned, with all the parties. And Qatar succeed to convince the United States that if I have a relation with all the guys, even the bad guys considered by because for example, the beginning of the war of Afghanistan, United States consider the Taliban as the bad guys, terrorists, but in the final, United States needs Qatar, and thanks Qatar, because it mediates because when we negotiate with our enemies. So let your friends have relations with your enemies, because in a moment you need your friends to mediate with the enemies. So Qatar, succeed to convince. That's why, they have all these parties considered as a terrorist by certain state in the West, for example, Hamas and others. But when the conflicts happen, they come to Qatar. Can you mediate with them? So I think that it can help Japan to play this role of mediation with the Qatar. I think that this is the perfect door, or the perfect partner in this regard.
Thank you very much for that. My apologies for running over time, but I would like to ask the last question. Approximately 300 people are listening in to this seminar, both including in person and online. For us to look at what is going on in the Middle East, what are some things that we should bear in mind in looking at the developments in the Middle East? We in Japan.
It's difficult to give answer to this question at this last minute after. Well, many things. First of all, keep an eye on Al Jazeera. So most of the developments in the Middle East will be carried by Al Jazeera, whether Arabic, English, or so you have many other languages now. Then if you can't watch the screen, you have other means of access to Al Jazeera's coverage. Geopolitics of the Middle East is very complicated, and it's developing as we speak. And if you have, you keep open channels with institutions in the Middle East, like Al Jazeera Center for Studies, we are happy to continue this relation cooperation. And there are many other institutions in the Middle East that you can contact and work with to understand the complexities of these issues and to bring a more informed understanding of what is happening in the Middle East. So, yeah, watch the Al Jazeera and extend your relations with institutions that make the public opinion, and give this understanding. Of course, the Middle East also needs to understand what's happening here. So it's both ways.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much for that. We're past the hour, and therefore we would like to conclude this seminar. Dr. Ezzeddine Abdulmoula and Mr. Haoues Taguia, thank you very much for joining us on stage, for giving us your views from the Middle East, on the Middle East developments. I would like to extend my deep appreciation, and please join me in a big round of applause to the speakers. We also would like to express a sincere gratitude to the many people who participated in person and online. The Sasakawa Peace Foundation will continue to disseminate information to promote understanding of the Middle East in Japan. We sincerely hope that peace and stability will come to the Middle East as soon as possible. And with this, I would like to close the event. Thank you very much for your participation today.